Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this session. Thank you, Nick, so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Glad to be here on DigitalCut 2025.
Woo!
Yeah.
So, guys, for those of you who can't read above, this session is called, whoa! For those of you who don't know, this session is called Events That Think, AI, Agents, and the Future of Field Marketing. Today, joining me is Nick Salvatoriello. He is the founder of Next Level Inbound, known for his high energy hosting style and strategic facilitation services. Nick has led, hosted, and facilitated 250 plus B2B webinars, field events, and partner launches for brands like HubSpot, Drift, 6 Sense, 2X, I'm going to run out of fingers, SmartBug, Sound GTM, Jasper, Search Tides, and UAV Coach. Nick has trained over 2,000 marketing professionals and agency partners during his years at HubSpot Academy. At Drift, he helped launch the Rev Growth virtual event series and co-led strategy partner activations with Adobe and On24 that had significant contributions to pipeline and revenue. Nick is also, lastly, the host of Vision to Vibe, an event marketing podcast. Thank you again, Nick, so much for joining me.
My pleasure for being here. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. So we're going to start with the hard-hitting questions to, set the tone for this entire thing.
Yeah, let's get down to it. Brass tacks, right?
Yeah.
That's what they came for.
Exactly. Okay, so Nick, field marketing has always been about human connection. Mm-hmm. Now that AI and agents are reshaping how events are planned and run, do you see this technology enhancing that human element or risking what makes events powerful in the first place?
I would say I'm the former. I definitely believe, Shannon, and everybody here joining us live, that AI, large language models, agents, chat agents, whatever you want to look at them under this whole umbrella of technology that we're talking about here today, is absolutely additive, and it helps enable more human-to-human connections because we can utilize this technology. And I have personally myself and with clients to plan, organize, research the event strategies that we're going to do to help actually engage with our fellow humans in real time, to help give real-time feedback and insights to the producers or the hosts of those events to figure out in real time how are they doing, what is the sentiment for the audience and stuff like that. So we'll walk through some of those use cases, but I truly believe, and I wouldn't be in this business or even on this session with you, Shannon, and with all of your attendees if I didn't believe that this is about deepening more human connection, enabling more human connections, not reducing them.
Yeah, no, exactly. I completely understand, and I think that that's what this is all about. So we'll get into the nitty-gritty of it.
Yeah,
and
talk about it.
So moving further, event marketing has always been resource heavy and slow to measure, notoriously. Mm-hmm. What do you see as the biggest inefficiencies in traditional field marketing today, and how do you think that AI can directly address those pain points?
Good question. And I would say the where my passion and my focus in my business begins with a metaphor or a moment that I feel that most sales and marketing professionals who are put in charge of planning and putting on and hosting an event, they've been put in the lead on doing that. It all seems to resonate around this one sentence. And let me know if you folks in the line, if any of you can relate. But I've often said, and many of the folks who come to me have said, events to me feel like they say, they've asked for me to do this, told me it was important for the company and for sales, but when the moment came down to it, nobody showed up. And maybe it's not literally nobody showed up, but people didn't follow through. They didn't get us what we needed. They didn't invite somebody that they said they were going to invite. They were going to contribute a piece of content, but they didn't. They were going to participate. They were going to be ready, but they weren't. These are constantly things that I think are the status quo for most of us who are put in charge of, who volunteer or commandeered to put on an event. Is, oh gosh, it's all on me. Most of us feel like we're on an island, we're resource strapped, even as you said. So where we think that AI can help come in is, can we help by creating assets for people, giving people starting drafts, automatic reminders, real-time insights? How can we use those things to get the people who normally should be helping us prepare and to execute a really great event, to help them do that faster, easier, and smarter? And we can dive into some of those use cases there. But I think the number one challenge we have, even before AI came on the scene, is there's too much work to be done everybody seems to plead ignorance that they don't know how to do it. They don't want to say the wrong thing. They don't have a template for this, or they weren't included on the plan. Nobody gave them this detailed training. And then the marketer or the event producer saying, it was all I could do simply to cover my bases, let alone spoon feed it and give it to everybody else. So that was the status quo. And now with, let's call them virtual assistants, now you've got a pretty much an unlimited Swiss Army knife team that can create, that can write, that can analyze, that can respond to you and others in real time. We can talk about some of those use cases and examples. I think that's a game changer for event organizers that we should all be fired up about embracing.
Yeah, 100%. As someone that is taking part in planning this event, it is sometimes a nightmare. There's so many things that you have to factor in.
Yeah. It's okay to admit that. That's why you're important, Shannon. Like, that's why I'm important, and the people we work with are important, because it's a big responsibility that usually they just try to rest with one person.
Exactly. Even with many tools, it can still be scary. So, like, you want to be able to optimize it as much as possible.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah. Can you, walk us through a workflow that marketers could implement with this AI acting as like a co-planner, and kind of talk about those use cases that you're talking about?
Yeah, and I'm going to assume, everybody, that when we talk about using AI, we're talking about generative AI, we're talking about some of the most common leading tools that when people talk about utilizing AI, you're talking about, Gemini, you're talking about Claude, you're talking about ChatGPT. And the vendor I chose, and then I do the majority of my work and my examples are drawn is from ChatGPT. But I've been to enough presentations and discussions that we're all being a part of this last year or so to know that what we're going to talk about here extrapolates to any of those platforms. And of course, there's agent marketplaces and agents, which are pre-programmed sort of prompts and things like that, specialized AI programming to use the same models in a far more like pre-cut out, pre-established with some guardrails around it way. So when we're talking about researching and planning to do an event, I often work with clients in the beginning saying, have we done the research on typical targets? A lot of times there's an occasion, there's a trigger moment, there's a geography, and we've got a little bit of budget. So we're going to try to put the budget and our own people as creatively into that geography and that moment. And we're hoping that if we just put out the bat signal, will get our target market to just come to us, because by the nature of the type of event it is, who will be there, how much budget we're spending on it, what gimmicks are we going to do. And none of that really sounds like a sales strategy to me. That just sounds like, I hope I have an open house and that people will beat a path to my door. My belief, and I hope that event organizers here should be thinking, is we're putting on this event because we believe there's a target market in that geo, around that topic, whatever it is, that if we gave them something compelling and interesting, that it would make it easy for our reps and the people who have relationships or are responsible for building those relationships with those accounts can go and target them and bring them to that event. That to me is the handshake. I'll create something really great, but you got to help me get the butts and seats. But so where I'm going with this is, oftentimes that conversation never happens. There's never let's do some market research. Do we have enough contacts to yield this? Who has a relationship in the CRM or otherwise that can be proven that you have some reach? You can get to this person, you can get them to come. We kind of avoid that and replace it with hope. That will just somehow percolate and make it happen. You could be going in to your AI models, into your platforms, your LLMs, ChatGPT, whatever, and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this event. What would be the best geography for this? What are some events that are already happening around that? You can start just using it as any sort of you can ask a question you're embarrassed to ask other people. Should we even do this? Are we charging the right budget? Is Washington, D.C. the right location? What are the pros and cons? Break it down for me of, should we do this as a hybrid event, a strictly in-person event, a completely virtual event? These are all decision paths that prior to the dawning of this AI age that you just had to kind of eye out and figure out yourself, or just copy whatever you did last time. So let's take a beat here and say, let's ask the AI, and of course it'd be great if I gave you prompts and stuff like that, but I'll go into why you can use AI to make your events better in that regard later, but ask it about the market. And then also you can get AI tools, if you're sophisticated and willing enough to do this, to integrate with your CRMs. So you can actually ask it and query it. And some CRMs, like tools like HubSpot and others, you can go right in there and they have their own AI windows and capabilities. So without even going out to ChatGPT or connecting the two, you can start asking it, who in our database fits this topic, fits this geo, fits this life cycle stage, whatever it is. So now you're talking about segments, data, firmographics, demographics of people. I'm just pushing for do a lot of that more upfront. And I think what's intimidating is to say, well, I'm the marketer or event organizer asking you, the sales reps. Well, let's ask the AI. Let's ask AI. Let's ask the analyst, the digital analyst. What does it think? Given the zeitgeist of the entire internet that it's calling on, our entire database, it can help us judge and decide, are we picking the right format? Are we picking the right geo? Do we have enough names? Are there enough relationships that we can channel? And let the data start to tell the story. You know, let the AI analyst give you some talking points and so on. So I just think that alone, it would be a great idea to research it. Then you can go on further to say, okay, if we've decided it's going to be virtual or it's going to be in this geo in person, then what are some good tactics that have worked there? You can just actually query the whole published internet that's available about what are case studies or examples. You're trying to brainstorm, not just trying to do whatever you were familiar with yesterday, but come up with better ideas. So I'll just pause there and say, I think that there's a lot of brainstorming, a lot of analysis, and a bit of like objectivity between sales going, no, there's definitely a bunch of prospects. If you just put up a great event, they're going to come, or we don't know if there's any prospects. So we need you, the marketer, event organizer, to make the call as to what type of event, where it should be, and that type of thing. Either one, it's a tough thing for us all to have to catch. So I'd like to be able to call in my data, my assistant, to help us with that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that what you mentioned specifically about like asking questions that you're embarrassed to ask, I think that there are so many people that are like starting events or doing their first event or whatever it may be that really want to do it, and they're too scared to ask certain questions, and so they either host a bad event or like an event that isn't successful because they're afraid to ask these types of questions, or they don't host the event at all because they don't feel comfortable asking someone for advice or whatever it may be because of like the nature of the things that they might want to ask. And so
Correct.
I agree, this is like the proper time and the proper tool to be able to do exactly that and check those things, because you know there is basic questions that you definitely should have the answers to, and down the line if you don't, you're probably going to be screwed. And
to just piggyback on what you're saying here, Shannon, what I might suggest to the audience, if you haven't ever done this before, using AI to help you plan for an event, ask it for tell about the situation, the event you're trying to organize, the type of company you are, and say, you're the best event planner in the world. What would be a best-in-class, best practices event brief that you could outline for me that I should get my sales team to help align with me on, and my executive team to align with me on? Please make sure it helps dictate the budget. Please help make sure it covers the target market that we're going to be inviting. Please help make sure it talks about sales' responsibility in that. Mm-hmm. So you could have your AI as what's one step you could take on what Shannon and I just talked about. Ask it to go draft a brief for you, and then you can after you can either have a totally organic conversation with your organization and have an AI note taker transcribe the whole thing in real time. That's another application, of course. You'll hear others probably talk about that the next couple of days. But then say, go fill out this brief, given what we just discussed, given the inputs that we have, and let it take a whack at actually filling it in for you and the sales team. And now you've really got something pretty beefy for your next call with your stakeholders.
Exactly. And you also have a set plan that is completely laid out, maybe obviously adjustments to be had in the future, but that everyone is on the same page. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's also difficult sometimes, is like managing all of your different teams and making sure that they know what's happening as a whole, and to have that laid out and everyone read the same thing, you know that is true.
That's correct. Agreed.
So we had discussed that a lot of people have trouble with engagement when they create an event, even if they maybe did everything else right, so to speak. Once an event is planned, promotion becomes a guessing game. How can generative AI and lightweight agents personalize outreach and campaigns? And what's a specific tactic that you feel has dramatically increased engagement?
Yeah, so if we're talking about on the promotional side for these events, I'm going to tell you some things that really are not revelations for those of us who are using AI models like ChatGPT, but they're just reminders that those things you know how to do, they would fit in here. So when it comes to promotion, be sure you can lean on your AI agents, your AI models to help you with things like generating posts to promote the event. You're going to need some source material, obviously, like interviewing the rep, getting the slide deck that's to be presented, looking at the landing page copy for sign up. There's got to be some sort of source. And again, the event brief, which we just talked about, if that was fleshed out in conjunction with your stakeholders and stuff like that, you've got some good source material. So you're going to go back into AI and say, okay, great, given the plan, give me a couple of promotional posts. Maybe you recommend a promotion style for me, AI, like let's let 1,000 flowers bloom here. Give me some ideas, give me some best practice examples, challenge me with some questions, like really put the model through its paces. So promotional posts, speaker bios. A lot of times every speaker is going to give you their standard bio. This one's 2 paragraphs long. This one refers to somebody in the first person. This one's referring to them in the second person. These are all little things that weigh us down. And your boss did not hire you to do that type of word processing and changing of cases or tenses or whatever. So quickly going into AI saying, can you just make this, 1 paragraph instead of 2? Can you make this in the first person versus third person? These things are going to save us time, not weigh us down, give us more headspace for jockeying the people, right? And having those hard discussions. So LLM generated posts, speaker bios that are kind of vetted and normalized by the LLM. Sometimes I've done, all right, here's a promotional post for this event. Can you please put this in the tone of voice as if it's coming from this speaker so that I can give them a matching one and make sure it's like more relevant to them and it's not overly promotional to us. You can give it, obviously the sky's the limit if you've done this type of thing before with your LLM. So you quickly generate a speaker-oriented post, and I will say you must get your speakers to promote this event. And if not being able to write that up kept you from it, like that excuse is gone. So make sure that you are shipping to your speakers more material than they've ever had before, because we're slashing the effort in half or slashing the time to produce that like in half. So, and then also teaser emails for your sales team. Sales team is willing to help you send emails and do invites usually, but they're intimidated because they don't know the event intimately and they don't know exactly what is like the best version of this email and so on. So maybe you're lucky and there's been some sales reps who've sent some emails before. Boom, I'm going to suck those in, throw those into the LLM, and I want the LLM to give me a version of that now, but for this event, in this context, for this geo, whatever. If not, you can help write it for them. Again, you could be from the transcript of the briefing planning call. It could be simply you just taking a whack at it for sales, but you give them something to start with. I think the teaser emails for how to invite somebody, how to remind somebody who's already registered to come. There are just a myriad of emails that need to be loaded in to your conference platform, to the email drip sequences you're going to be opting in key prospects into, reminder emails, follow-up emails. All of that can be pre-written or just V1 drafted in moments once you have the right inputs going in.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
On the promotion side, that's that. Execution side, I mean, we even use that a little bit for this, right, Shannon? And we would be silly not to, that we created a talk outline based on a discussion that you and I had around this, looking at what DigitalCut's vision and mission is all about for these attendees. And we created a talk track that I'm occasionally referencing, that you're referencing in real time. So AI can help you see cue cards, talk tracks. Many of us, I assume, have used things like Fathom or Otter AI, these real-time note takers. My Fathom, I love, will let me know in real time, you're talking way more than everybody else is on the call. Sometimes that's on purpose, sometimes you don't notice. So the AI in a variety of tools and formats can help you in the real time guiding your execution as well. You get sentiment, what's going on, what's the summary of everybody who's responding. We're seeing Zoom and lots of people adopt that now. You're getting real-time summaries before the call's even done, before the webinar's even done. So I think those are definitely things that you'd want to do. And then if you want to do interactive polls, if this is a webinar or a digital format, once again, you go back in and say, what's a best practice set of questions I could ask given the synopsis of what the speaker is going to be covering or the speaker's bio, what have you. You see what we're doing here, right? So I'll pause there, Shannon.
Yeah, no, you definitely mentioned a lot of levels that I think it can help on, which is extremely helpful. Like for promotional tools, you should set up your speakers for success of being able to promote properly. If you miss that opportunity, then you're definitely probably not going to get the expected attendees that you're looking for. And then there's just so many other levels in which AI can help that you mentioned. And I appreciate you going through every single one, because I think that sometimes people have these tools, but they don't necessarily know, or you don't know what you don't know, so you don't necessarily know what to address with them, or you're like, I'm used to doing something a certain way, as you mentioned earlier in the chat. I'm just going to do it the same way, and you realize that you can do it, so you don't realize you can do it more effectively with using something to help you.
Correct. And I would just remind everybody before we move on that like AI can help you write the copy, but it's the humans that bring the vibe. It's the humans that's going to give you that transcript or those raw inputs, your voice to put into AI to help remix and process into various different deliverables and formats. But it's also about when it does give you the feed, the readout and so on. You and I aren't just reading off a script right now. We've got some guidance and some structure that would have taken us way too long to in our limited time to be able to put together without the help of an AI assistant. Boom. And then also a sales rep you're giving this email to, you're hoping they're going to add a sentence or two of personalization once they send it out to a key target account. That's what sales is getting paid for, is bringing that into their context. So AI can help you write the copy, but humans are always going to bring the vibe, and that's why it's okay to use.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and I appreciate that because there are people that are going to be of completely different sides of the spectrum about how they feel about AI in DigitalCut. So it'll definitely be, it's important to recognize both sides and like how it can be important, but how the human aspect can be involved in it as well. And that's not necessarily like being taken away. So we now just discussed promotion of the event, and now where I think a lot of people also struggle with is the follow-up opportunities after the event. And that's what you were discussing earlier with like this overall usually is a sales strategy. That is what events usually become. And if you're missing the opportunity of being able to follow up with your attendees, then not great. So for most companies, post-event follow-up is where opportunities slip through those cracks. How can AI-driven systems automate attendee follow-up and like score engagement as well, like the surveys that you were talking about, translate participation into actual pipeline or revenue outcomes?
Indeed, and this is an area that, no surprise to anybody listening, this is where a lot of organizations struggle. I think there was a stat, and I'll have to find it, from HubSpot, but I'm sure it's been quoted elsewhere, that the vast majority of leads that come from something like a trade show, the traditional field event, are not followed up with, which is ridiculous when you consider how much time and effort and money that you put into it. You put people on airplanes and they fly out and stuff like that, but we've all lived it. I've lived it. You're like, I promised myself I was going to follow up more quickly and so on, and I didn't. And I think the speed of the follow-up, the consistency of your follow-through really shows that you're giving this audience prime attention. So the first and foremost is being able to set those systems up ahead of time. Now, we can all delineate here that there's a difference between automation. If this, then that. That's been around for a long time. So you're going to just need that. It bears mentioning, setting up ahead of time in your marketing automation system or whatever you have, whether it's just down to MailChimp or whatever. If we see a contact come in from the trade show, from the event, from the registration form or whatever, then set an automatic reminder to this rep to go follow through, send an automatic email perhaps out thanking this contact, what have you. So just make sure obviously that's in place. That's the first best practice that most of us are missing. Planning ahead of time. Now you should have a little bit more headspace because your AI assistant was writing up the brief and filling out the brief and stuff like that. And it's rewriting that speaker promo copy for you we talked about. So you've got a little headspace now to set up that automation and get those things going ahead of time. But now let's talk about what audiences really want in events now is I want that transcript, I want that recap right away. And I know you got it because I've got a freemium copy of Fathom or Otter AI or whatever, and it produced it for me in seconds. So I know the excuse of we need a week and we got to, collate and we didn't hire a note taker person. It's like, no, that's all gone. So the expectations for the speed of our follow through are faster than ever. But the good news is you've got these tools at your fingertips. So think about that. Almost every call you're on from now on is a content creation opportunity, and your sales reps are capable of interviewing people to pull out of them the copy and the content that you want to feed in and utilize. So everybody who comes to this event, it's almost practically understood that what they're commenting on, what they're sharing in chat is a quasi-public medium. So you're looking for those people who are engaged. And yes, I suppose you could export out of your event tool the engagement data, who logged in first, who was doing the most commenting and so on. Ask AI to do that analysis for you. Who are the top 10 most engaged people who attended? And because it's already default. The speaker, what we thought as a company who put the event on, that's all got to be transcribed and turned into a recap, period. Most of us will do that anyway. But what about getting the attendees to share their takeaways fast? And get that into the content piece too. We're going to do an ebook or a guide or a key takeaway or a recap of this. Let's get the attendees in there too. So you tell your sales reps now, in addition to us getting the speakers recap and everything else, go contact these top 10 accounts that were assigned to you that showed tremendous engagement. They're using the right keywords or the right level of time on the event and so on. It's much easier, of course, if we're talking about a virtual event, but there are other proxies for this in person too. And this just is having good discipline with your sales reps. If it's an in-person dinner or a trade show booth, to just be able to put it into the CRM or put a note in a spreadsheet, however you do it, to capture that and feed it off to you. Just a little bit less seamless if it's in person, but it's very doable for veteran sales teams. And you set that expectation. Now, those sales reps are going to call those 10 people, and instead of just saying, did you like the event? Or since you got the free spaghetti, do you want to see the demo or whatever, is to say, what'd you think? Because now you can cross-reference what they say against your brief. The brief at the beginning said, if we do this and we get them there, they're going to think this, they're going to feel this, we are going to impart this knowledge. Now you can ask them, did that actually happen? Cross-reference. And second of all, what you just said is pretty awesome. We've been taking notes in AI the whole time. Do you mind if I remix that, throw that in as a key takeaway, linking back to your company, your brand or whatever, which we're all trying to build now online, and include you in our little recap post that's relevant to the professionals such as yourself that we invited for this event? 98% of the people are going to say, oh, yeah. And 10% of those 98 will say, I wouldn't mind seeing a copy of it first. Done. Sure. Now you got another touch point back to that prospect. So now you're calling the prospect with a chance to be made increasingly famous, to have their voice be heard in your content. And you're going to go back and check with them a little bit to make sure it's just right. And then they're going to repost it. They're going to comment on it and thank you. And now your sales reps got a little bit more than just, I know you took our free thing, so you owe me a demo. It's sort of like, no, I want to see what more you think is important for the world. And like, we're going to share that out. And since you mentioned that's important to us too. Should we talk about how you're solving that, or what did you think? So all we're trying to do here, gang, is to more quickly and efficiently create excuses for sales reps to reach out to contacts and help create content with them by just getting them on the phone and asking them what their key takeaways are. You toss that over to our content team. Hopefully you got a content team of some kind. You toss that over to your LLM, have it remix those transcripts, boom. And now you got an excuse to come back. So I think that's the big one. AI is not going to close the deal for you, but it may be able to quickly follow up, make sure you don't miss a step. And once you get those prospects who came to the event talking to you about why it mattered to them and what they took away from it, being able to turn that into content that promotes them, that promotes you, and gives you an excuse to follow up.
Yeah, and I genuinely think that's genius, because there are so many different avenues and touch points that can happen during this process. But at the end, I think a lot of people are just like, well, we can use this as leverage for a sales pitch kind of thing. And that is such a wrong way to think about it. Like, there is so many different ways in which you can continue to talk to someone and give them value after an event happens. And that is so many things that you mentioned, like the equivalent of a review, but like advertising it in like a newsletter or something like that to recap the event of like, well, how people felt about it. Like, that gives someone free publicity in certain sense, but also makes them feel valued, that like their opinion matters on the event, which it does. And so all of those things are, I think, what people miss in exactly what you're saying for like following up is not just, hey, do you want Penji? Like, after this event, it's, hey, how, like, what was your feedback? How can we make this better? Did you like what we created, kind of thing, like asking genuine questions, and then, maybe saying, hey, we created this. If you need anything like it, here you go. Like, kind of, but it has to be something that is valuable still, not something that is just a direct, well, you owe me.
Right. Yeah, totally. And with platforms like we're using today, Shannon, like Riverside, built into many of these platforms is whatever was just said, whether it was on the big event with a big audience or one-on-one, and not just in Riverside, Zoom and all these have similar features. You can now say, call out to me, platform, what was the best minute of what just happened here that we just recorded? And a case in point, I just did this last week for an event I was promoting. I interviewed the person I was co-hosting it with on a podcast. We pulled out the best minute of it. I used that minute. I said, give me the minute that relates the most to the event that him and I are going to be co-emceeing together. It found it for me. It became part of my promotional material. That can become part of your follow-up material. You just can't do that fast enough before the whirlwind hits you before or after these events. So to me, it's just making sure the opportunity does not get plowed under by all the other stuff that comes out at you once you're done with your event.
Exactly. And just final question for you to relate this back to the human element. Like, events are getting smarter, more automated, but I think most of us agree that the human element still defines that success. What kind of qualities or skills do you think event marketers and facilitators need to cultivate that indispensable traits in which they need to seed into an event?
A big question, but one I welcome, Shannon, and one that hopefully you folks will ponder after we wrap up today. But I will summarize, if you remember nothing else, it's a nice little rhyme for you here. If you want high performance from your events, put on a performance. If you want high performance, you better put on a performance. So everything we talked about is about producing cues, prompts, inputs. But those things are nothing without being put into the right context to go out to people. They're nothing without someone creating meaning from it, filtering that, announcing it, utilizing it, that type of thing. And that's where the performance aspect is. We talk about different skills. Now it's about how can I take what is given back to me from these AI machines and jazz it up to be received well by humans. And I'm all about cultivating the skills that actors and the most successful communicators and presenters have, which is confidence in front of an audience, confidence on screen, and utilizing it in a subtle way, whatever inputs or guides that you have, like we have here for today, and focusing mostly on engaging with your fellow humans. I feel like this can help clear the decks for us, so that's all that's left. Script taken care of. You want it to be funny, it remixed it as funny. You want it to be in rap lyrics, you got it in rap lyrics. But now it's time for, now it's time for you to go ahead and make that your own and communicate, elucidate, say it out loud. That is what we're trying to help enable people to do. And if I need to give you an outline and a structure for a discussion, I need to give you a template for an email you're going to send. How can we as the orchestrators and the facilitators help set our actors up, our performers up to give an incredible performance? Because whether it's an in-person event people are interacting with, it's a virtual one where you're kind of hanging out, you're here to be entertained first and foremost. If we do not entertain, we cannot educate. Think about the least successful class you ever took in college or high school or whatever. It was probably the one with the most boring teacher. We need to become great performers so we can entertain and people go, huh, what? He's rapping, he's smiling, he's moving around, he's raising his voice, using hand gestures, he's got a magician's hat on or something to break patterns and have them go, something unexpected and unusual from my drab and stressful day might actually happen here in a moment, and I'm here for it. You got to show them, and you know why that's scary and hard to do? Because it takes risk. You're gonna have to put yourself out there, but it should be less risky if you had the AI, Borg mind tell you this is best practice. This is works. We scanned your 10 examples. We scanned your whole transcript. This is the sum total. This is the truth. So I think that AI can give us that confidence to focus on. Now it's just time to perform and entertain with what we have here.
Yeah, and that's the fun part. So AI gives us the opportunity to do the fun part.
Totally.
Well, Nick, thank you so much for joining me today. This was absolutely a pleasure. I hope that it makes me feel more confident about what we're doing today because of everything that you said. I mean, the execution is, not to give anyone a spoiler, but I'm hoping that, this is exactly what we're looking for. So I am really happy to hear all of this. I know that this will definitely help someone else trying to plan an event because I hear the disasters in which happen.
Yeah, sure.
Specifically just avoiding one thing that you mentioned, and not just even, a lot of people do a lot of it but forget that one strategic thing that is really important, and I think you were extremely thorough with the entire process, so I really appreciate your help.
Hey, my pleasure.
And thank you again so much. Thank you everyone for listening to this session. Please check out other sessions and the resources below. And thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. I would love to talk to anybody, even if you're just struggling, you want to sort of talk shop about this first and foremost. I've got a podcast. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find. And I'm always happy to talk to people who are trying to organize better experiences.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Nick. Have a lovely digital cut, everyone.